Hello, hello. Welcome to the latest episode of the Positive Prime podcast. I'm here with two amazing ladies. I'm very blessed actually to be able to share the digital stage with Kim Serafini, founder of Positive Prime, and Jackie Simmons. So welcome to the podcast.
Cool. Thank you.
I've got a cheeky intro to introduce Jackie onto the stage. And I think it's like the flowing language that both Kim and Jackie embody really allows people to go on a journey with them. And I've found that from being very, very lucky to have been able to spend quite a bit of time with Kim and then also some workshop time with Jackie. But Jackie Simmons is a TEDx speaker, radio show host, international best-selling author, mindset resilience master, and co-founder of the Teenage Suicide Prevention Society. And Jackie is best known for her mission to wake up the world. And a little bit about Jackie's story. Jackie was blindsided by her 14-year-old daughter's suicide attempt in 1995, which she entered a world of depression, addiction, medical mysteries, and deadly silences. The journey into the world of mental health services and cultural taboos left Jackie feeling lost and alone. She said, "I'm fine on the outside, but deep inside, the psychic wounds began a facade of frantic entrepreneurial activity was kind of hiding that." And then on the 3rd of August, 2019, Jackie's now 37-year-old daughter broke the silence. And Jackie calls August 3 the day her purpose tapped her on her shoulder. So check out Jackie's TED Talk for the full story there. And the way with words that you would have just experienced there really invites people into making meaning of the stories that Jackie tells. And she's also one of Positive Prime's biggest advocates, champions, or legends, as I'd like to say. And she's also a published author on our site with her session, Leaving Shouldville. And can I just say about the linguistics of Jackie and the word leaving, or the words leaving Shouldville, have kind of stuck with me straight off the bat after I first heard you mention them, and influenced my conversation straight away to the point where I catch myself saying should and going, actually, is that what I really want to be saying to this person? And so thank you for that. And there's also another thing that I've picked up from one of your workshops, which was you say, first heal thyself. And so I'd love to step off from this point and welcome you onto the Positive Prime podcast.
Thank you very much, Benny. That's an amazing introduction. I am very happy to be here because you're right. I am an advocate of Positive Prime, and it's because of the effect it had on my life. So we'll get there. You get to guide where we get started. So where do you want this to go, Benny?
I'd love to start with the heal thyself, because I think there's a thread which has been coming up with these beautiful conversations that we've been having with people, is that is such an integral part of the journey. Because I think we're in a day and age where people are spouting off on the internet, trying to get people to do something that they haven't actually experienced or gone through themselves. And so it's something I really respect about your journey. So I'd love you to expand on the heal thyself notion.
Thank you. I mean, it's an amazing story from my perspective. So I'm going to share it from the idea of what would you do? You're a single mom. You own a daycare. You are in pain every day. The doctors just told you you need to be on bed rest. 3 kids, a daycare, no husband. Bed rest? So instead they put me on Levsin with phenobarb. This is not a way to live when you're trying to raise young kids. So I went on a journey to heal my back pain, and that led me into Eastern healing arts. Now, underneath the back pain was the real pain. I was struggling with clinical depression. And what I found on my journey to heal myself, first of the back pain and then of the depression, was that these things are misunderstood from the get-go. My back pain was not requiring surgery. It was requiring maintenance. It was the study of shiatsu where I was crawling around on the floor. Just that natural crawling movement unwound my back. I've been pain-free and medication-free for decades. When it came to depression, I didn't understand it as I went searching everywhere for a cure. This is not something I wish on anyone. The chronic anxiety that came with being not in depression, but being afraid of falling back into depression was almost worse than the depression. So that journey led me into studying both the body, the spirit, the mind, and eventually the emotions. And putting those four things together. This has been my journey, looking for the things that will help combine those four things back the way we're born, because we're born with our body, mind, spirit, and emotions all together. So finding the way to reconnect those threads for myself. Now, my guy's a car guy, so I tend to talk in terms of automobile analogies. Here's what my life was like. Imagine you've got body, mind, spirit, and emotions, four tires on a car, and your emotional tire is flat. And then you go and fix it by trying to pump more air into your body, mind, and spirit. And you overinflate those tires trying to compensate for the fact that your flat tire. The car's not going to go very far. But that's what I had found, is that we tend to look for what's easy to fix and not for what's really the cause. So that's the journey that led me to what I do now, where, it's a little bit of mindset magic, but what I'm really doing is helping people permanently resolve the negative emotional history that's behind all the limiting beliefs that drag them down and keep them playing small. And I had to heal myself of that, of playing small, before I could take a TEDx stage with any sense of authenticity at all. And that's where Positive Prime came into my life. 3 weeks before my TEDx stage. I'm going to tell you the nightmare of speaking. I am 3 weeks before my TEDx stage on a topic I am very passionate about, which I'm sure we'll get to. 3 weeks before the stage, and every minute that passed, I hated my script more. Found a friend who was a former TEDx organizer, and I said, would you please read my script? Give me some feedback. And he said, Jackie, your content's really good, and it's not going to inspire anybody. And I said, yeah, it doesn't inspire me. Will you help me? 3 weeks before stage is not when most people start writing their script for a TEDx talk. I got very, very lucky. I had been interviewed on a podcast by a man named Bruce Barnes. And in getting to know him as he was interviewing me about my upcoming stage, he shared about automatic negative thoughts and the concepts behind a platform, Positive Prime. And right about the same time that I started working with Roger, I started working with Positive Prime. And between the skills and guidance of my TEDx coach, Roger Killen, and the power of Positive Prime to help me bring together all of my body, mind, spirit, and emotions with the belief that I could do this, with the happy, no matter what attitude, so that the pressure came down. I was going to be happy no matter what happened on that stage. That dropped the pressure dramatically. So I rocked that stage. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know it was possible, but I've been promoted. I've been promoted from a TEDx speaker to a TED speaker because TED.com is now showing my talk on their site. And it's only been live for a month. I credit the combination of having a good guide and having a mindset tool that effortlessly helped me to be happy no matter what. So I wasn't worried. And worry is the death of most speakers because it robs you of your short-term memory. Stress does that. It actually takes the blood flow from the higher functioning parts of your brain. So you aren't going to be creative, and you sure as heck aren't going to remember the way you think that you should, or the way that you think that you will. And knowing that from my stress management days, I was really grateful. that on the day that I took the stage, I didn't have a thing to worry about. So there we go. That's my heal myself story.
Jackie, I absolutely love that. So for those of you who are just tuning in, I'm Kim Serafini, the founder and creator, the inventor of what is a positive prime session. Jackie, given that you actually have a rare ability and understanding of the underpinning factors that really are built into the formula for why and how positive prime works, what do you think is so special about it? Because I love it that we were involved in your journey in even the smallest or tiniest way. I mean, ultimately, your destiny is to share the story that you did on the TEDx stage, which is why it's really resonating with tens of thousands of people and it's going viral. But I'm really curious about your own insights about why and how a positive prime session works.
The science behind it, I will leave to the scientists. My understanding of how the brain works is from the world according to Jackie. I believe we have a natural negative bias of the brain. I believe we've inherited it from our common ancestor, Og, the caveman. And in Og's day, negativity was the only way to survive. You know, he's out walking around, he spies the purple plant. Purple plant, what do I know about purple plant? Last time I ate purple plant, I got sick. I'm not eating the purple plant. If the brain worked any other way, we would not still be here. You know, imagine waking up in the morning and you're stretching and you're walking out and it's a beautiful sunny day and you see a shaking bush. Well, if you're Og, you're back in the cave. You don't have to think about it. In that instant, three things happen. The blood rushes to the arms and legs because the body's been flooded with the stress chemicals, the adrenaline that allows this to just move without thinking. The challenge for modern day, that blood comes from the higher functioning areas of the brain. For Og, it was a life-saving gift because he didn't have to worry about bleeding to death if he got a head injury, which was kind of common back then. For us, it's a tragedy waiting to happen, or at least it was for me, because all it would take, I mean, we don't have very many real saber-toothed tigers in my world, but I had a boss who liked to stand behind me, and my brain would shut down. I would not breathe deeply. If I was lucky, I was breathing at all. I would hold my breath, which, by the way, shallow breathing triggers fight or flight. So now I've got all of these chemicals in my brain and no blood. And he'd ask me a question and I'd mumble something, I'll get back to you. And he'd walk away. And as soon as he was gone, I did exactly what Og did when he was back in his cave. Darn, that's what he wanted. And then I'd have to chase him down the hallway. And it happened so often without me understanding that there's nothing wrong with me. I thought I was crazy. No, this is just the way the system's designed. So this natural negative bias, once you understand it, then you can take the steps to mitigate it. And what I found with positive prime is that it immediately sets my brain on the opposite path. It gives me an image that I can carry with me that kind of puts a pause button on that stressor. Because while he might still stand over my shoulder, I've adapted my body to be in a calmer, happier state as a baseline. So even if he triggers me, it's not going to be the same biochemical interaction because my body has all of the chemicals in it that counterbalance the stress chemicals. So I'm good, even with a modern day saber-tooth tiger.
I love that. The world according to Jackie, absolutely accurate and so powerful. You're right. We're not taught any of these kinds of concepts really in a way that's easily applicable at school or even before we go to school, which is a little bit of a shame, but I think that there's a real movement in the education system globally to teach some of the principles of positive psychology. I don't know about you, but I was the kind of child who always had the red marks around anything that I got wrong. And I had the kinds of teachers who were nuns, who wanted to point out the faults and the misgivings and the mistakes, never really helping me to focus almost exclusively on my strengths and my gifts and my talents, and how do I offer those in the world, and how do I contribute in a meaningful way. And, you know, I think that that's all of us.
And it's not their fault. It's really not their fault. Remember, we have a natural negative bias. If we tried to run a piece of machinery on anything other than negative feedback, it would oscillate out of control. So this is just how we think we're supposed to manage things. And yeah, teachers, parents, I mean, my dad, God bless him. I sent him a copy of my report card, and he called me up, and I will forever probably remember the first thing he said to me. He said, "What about the C? What's going on?" Now, I had sent him a report card. I went to a progressive school. I was in 11 classes. That report card had 8 A's, 2 B's, and 1 C. And when he got silence from me, he said, "I'm only kidding. Congratulations on the A's." Yeah, we're talking 50 years later. What do I remember? The fact that it was the C that he commented on first. But that's because of the way he was trained. We go to this natural negative bias of what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong. And it's how our brains are designed and culturally encouraged to be. And that's why I love Positive Prime, because Positive Prime focuses and gets my brain to focus on the opposite. You know, the difference between going to someone and saying, and this almost happened to me, and it's one of the reasons I'm so grateful for Positive Prime, because I am so far from perfect. I was getting ready to have a meeting with someone who I know was struggling with money. And I knew they had access to a lot of different affiliate programs that are about to go viral. And I was going to start the conversation. I was rehearsing it, and it was like, you know, and have you done this? And have you done that? Knowing full well that they hadn't. But that was how I was taught to manage. And what ended up happening was I got an inspiration. And instead of asking them what they were doing, I shared with them what I was doing, because I was part of the same programs. And I'm like, and I'm super excited because this is what's happening over here and the income that's coming in. And did you see the new tools for that? And it became a collaborative effort for her to get her income back up, rather than me taking her to Shouldville like she should have been doing something different.
Love it. It's beautiful insights on the fly that is so important for us all to hear, whether it's a relationship with a child, or if we're teachers, or if any opportunity that we can share something that's not telling people what they need to do, but inviting them into a different way of thinking is so important. There was something you mentioned about images that you carry with you throughout your day. And one of my favorite things about Positive Prime is that we get to create our sessions and put the images in that we want to carry with us throughout our day. So what are some of those images that you selected that you wish to carry with you throughout the day?
I actually have a beautiful picture of a mother and child elephant with their trunks intertwined and the baby's head on the mama's trunk. And I had put that into my Positive Prime sessions because it is just this experience of absolute comfort with another creature, with another member of your family, if you will. And so that's one of the images that I put in. Now, I also put in images of me on the TEDx stage, because that's something that I put a lot of effort into. And I intend to take another TEDx stage. And, I don't know if it's coincidence or not, but I put the images of me on the stage in January, and I just got offered a stage in December. So I will be back on the TEDx stage by the end of this year. Did I conjure that up through magic? No, the universe knew I was still excited about it. And so that's one of the images I've put in there. My other images that I absolutely love are waterfalls that I have visited around the world with my guy. I have a thing for waterfalls. And anybody who watches the session leaving Shouldville is going to notice that I've got a thing for elephants and waterfalls because there's a bunch of those in there. And you can add anything you want, which is what I really, really loved about being able to customize, because I've got hand-drawn pictures that my kids did in my positive prime sessions and images that just captured my imagination. So when I sit down, I know that I am going to feel like I've come home, not like somebody's trying to put something foreign into my head. I'm coming home to what's true for me. And I think that's really one of the key things that makes it work so fast.
You're absolutely right there, Jackie. Absolutely right. When we see photographs that are really meaningful and significant to us, integrated into the content, it actually allows our whole mind, our unconscious, our superconscious, as well as our conscious and our subconscious, to wrap around that which is potentially unfamiliar and make it familiar. It's almost like there's this energetic bridge, and we allow in content that might have otherwise challenged us or been new to us. And so it's a part of the way that we change our identity. It's a bit like somebody who's never made $1 million a year. If they watch some of the financial sessions, they're more likely to be the kind of person who will make $1 million a year once they've identified themselves. So they've seen lots of photographs of themselves inside that content, and then it becomes automatic. It's almost like you're on self-correcting pilot mode. It becomes organic, it's natural, it emerges. It allows us to evolve into who we need to be, what we need to be thinking in order for that to be a reality for us. And so it's not that we're actually like, in some cases people say affirmations, like I am sexy, I am sexy, I am sexy. And our brain says that's just total BS. I don't feel that. And so then we reject it. And when we reject it, we're resisting. And so it doesn't actually allow it to be. But if we actually see that statement, I am sexy, and then we see a photograph of ourselves, our brain actually links those two together. So there's a new neural net created, and that's actually how we accelerate change in a really amplified way. So you're definitely onto something. And admittedly, in every single session, we also have the energy of gratitude actually built into it. Because when we're feeling very grateful, that positive emotion allows, from a brain perspective, for us to actually have the areas of our brain light up that are responsible for resourcefulness and creativity and executive functioning and so forth. And so when we have photographs, it might be of one of your pets or one of your children or one of the experiences that you are truly appreciative of, and you see that, you trigger that reaction. So that's like the stimulus that causes your brain to actually engage in what Dr. Barbara Fredrickson calls the broaden and build theory. So for those of you who are listening, you can tell I love understanding what's actually really going on here from a scientific point of view. And even though I'm super esoteric and spiritual as a person, I still want to marry it with what does the research say and what have we been able to prove in our own lives? How have we applied it,
That's the one thing that makes the fastest change with my clients is when they start bringing into their awareness the one thing that their subconscious mind cannot argue with, their own experience. It's the one thing that the subconscious mind accepts as absolute fact is your own experience. So when you put images of yourself in with the experiences that you've had, certainly, and with the experiences that you want to have, your brain accepts them as fact. And it's one of those unique pieces around positive prime that I haven't found very many other places. Now, there's a lot of things that I've accomplished with visualization over the years. One of them was I ceased smoking. Now, I ceased smoking because I was very, very motivated. And I knew that I could visualize myself as a non-smoker and that would help me get there. The visualization of being a non-smoker came from some books I was reading, about some easy ways to stop being a smoker. The motivation came from my guy, Mark, because he let me know that he did not date women who smoked. And I'd been chasing him for a few months. So I said, I quit. He says, I don't believe you. I did that night. I was highly motivated. Yeah. The combination of visualization and emotion, especially anticipation and gratitude, these happy places, is compelling to our brains. It is what gets us out of bed in the morning with enthusiasm. My favorite way to explain positive prime to people is that it's a powerful source of perpetual optimism. And who doesn't need a little more optimism? I mean, where would that make a difference in your day? For me, it makes a difference every day, because when I am optimistic, I don't get caught up in the what if it goes wrong. I stay in the we'll figure it out. When I am optimistic, I know that the path will open before me. I just have to keep walking. And so having that source of optimism available to me at the click of a button. Oh, and that's one of the things I wanted to say. When you were talking about how this evolves the brain, I got this image of really hard work. And that's what personal change used to mean to me. It was hours of journaling. It was vision boards. It was, and I am not one to sit and willingly cut images out of magazines or flip through magazines, but it was, it was tedious work. It was reading the same thing every day. When it came to positive prime, all of that went away. There's no magazines to flip through to find images. I've got them all on my computer, on my phone. They're easy to find on the internet. I can, take screenshots of what is compelling about places in the world I want to go. It's super, super simple. I don't have to cut and paste. Now, I don't have to get together with my girlfriends. That is okay. But that was the best part about that whole process. And I don't have to read something over and over and over and over and over again. Because what I know is that while writing sentences works, which is why it was so popular in helping kids get some basic ideas, that had a lot of kinesthetics with it that we've lost with the computer age. With positive prime, because these images are so evocative and have so much movement in them, my brain gets the message as if my muscles are firing. So it's like the lazy way to change everything. And so I just wanted to point out, if anybody heard it the way I did, that it reminded them of a lot of work. Now, this literally is for me. Oh, I think I'll prime. Click. I'm good. Yeah. I can do it anywhere. It's lovely.
Oh, I love that you mentioned that, Jackie, because one of my intentions was to create something that I would actually use, right? So you've been there, I'm sure. Some of you who are listening will have. You go to the retreat, you read the bestseller, you dive into the masterclass, you turn up to the summit, right? You've done the whole Anthony Robbins Life Mastery University program, and it's all awesome. And you make these decisions, yes, I'm going to apply that. Yes, I'm going to be this kind of person. And then, quite frankly, it fades. And it fades for a whole heap of reasons. There's lots of research about that, which we remember 24 hours later, 7 days later, 30 days later, et cetera, et cetera. And so we all learn, if you take notes perfectly, you're actually going to retain more for longer and you're going to be able to recall more for longer. Well, not very many people know this, but one of the first pieces of research that was done objectively, very generously by Sean Acor and his wife, Michelle Gillen, on a positive prime session was actually about the way that our formula activates your implicit and your explicit memory, and how we actually improve comprehension of the content that's within a session. But here's what I was going to say. I just needed a simple way to remind myself of the essence of what Tony says, or Jack Canfield says, or Marissa Peer says, or do you know what I mean? Like, what I love about Positive Prime is it brings into my awareness very, very elegantly, constantly, all of the goodness and juiciness that I've heard from all of these gurus. And it puts me in a place where I can be reminded. It's just about being reminded. And when I'm reminded, I can do something about it. So, it's not every day I remind myself, hey, I am a child of God, and my playing small does not serve the world, like Marianne Williamson says. But if I have that quote and I've uploaded it every day, I can remind myself to allow my light to shine and give permission to others. I don't remember it otherwise. I mean, it's just, there's too much going on in my life and in my world and in my business and in my family. And there's just too much going on for me to remember everything that I kind of want to be reminded of.
Well, yeah, we sort of have only so much memory available to us at any given moment. Even though our subconscious remembers everything, our conscious memory is filtered, or we would go crazy with trying to manage life with everything going on. I mean, if I remembered the specific gravity of toothpaste every time that I went to brush my teeth and all of those other details, it's why our brains gave us muscle memory and gave us some deep storage in our subconscious mind, so that we could be present to the world. When you talked about Positive Prime being something that, it improves the ability to remember the images because of the way that it's structured. I mean, transformative tech is not something I knew anything about before I found Positive Prime. Now I am a transformative techie. I don't need to know, just like watching Star Trek, I don't need to know the science behind it to enjoy the show. So I didn't need to go deep dive into the science behind Positive Prime to feel the effect of it in my life. So the power of this is just so much fun for me. It was also the fact that there is such an awareness and a consciousness that goes into curating every image and every word. And I wouldn't have understood that if I had not created my own, if I had not become a part of the Professional Leaders Program and learned the process of putting together a session. What I understand now is giving me a deeper appreciation, because every single image, and there's 1,000 images in my session. There's over 240 images that have my words on them, but there's another 1,000 images beyond that. And I'm like, holy Toledo, how many years would it have taken me to find images that were evocative of the message that I wanted to get across to people? And, my message is, you can't do it wrong. That's the premise behind Leaving Shouldville, is you can't do it wrong. And getting that across in a way that I was effortless almost from my point of view, because you all have these amazing people who know how to find the images. So every time someone watches any session, but especially mine, they're getting the benefit of somebody who cared enough to curate every individual image that they're seeing. That's a lot of love to come in at one time. I finally figured out why this is so needed in the world today. And I don't know the exact statistics, but this is, according to the world, according to Jackie, this is the statistic. We need Positive Prime now, because now more than any other point in history, we are bombarded with negative images and headlines. We are bombarded at a level that in one day, we are exposed to more negative images and headlines than our body was designed to take in a lifetime. And that's happening every day. And we wonder why depression and anxiety are going up in the world. Oh my goodness, what's to be happy about when every time you open a screen, every time you open a newspaper, every time you turn on a radio, you're getting bombarded with more than your system was designed to handle as far as constricting energy. So now, fast forward, using positive prime, we've got the secret weapon. We don't have to be victims of this anymore. We can say, like the old muffler commercial, I'm not going to take it anymore. We don't have to. And we don't have to push back. We don't have to add our own negative energy and push it away. We can simply coat ourselves with what I call emotional Teflon. And all the energy, all the expectations, all the judgments and opinions of the world just slide right off of us. And we get to be who we are at our essence. And we don't have to take on the weight of the world anymore. You know what, Kim? I think that is what has left me free to believe that I could change the world in my one little niche that I'm focused on. It's the fact that I'm not carrying the weight of the world anymore.
That is so incredibly potent. You know, Jackie, it is so true. I used to be one of those people who told people that they should turn the TV off, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that anymore. You know why? Because when you are flooded with enough, so I just need to, like this tiny little thing, in every single positive prime session, you are right, every single image adheres to our formula. And every single image is there for a reason, a really good reason. There is a certain number of what we call Duchenne smiles, really happy, sincere, genuine, heartfelt, warm smiles. When your eyes see those smiles and processes it, it sends this message and your brain thinks, oh, wow, I'm smiling. Now, here's the crazy thing. If you live in a household, which I did, where people were grumpy, or they were angry, or they were frustrated, or they were stressed out themselves. And you can't escape that, right? Particularly during lockdown. The funny thing is that no longer needs to be what you allow to permeate, like what you absorb, because you can sit in front of a positive prime session and within 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 15, it's a minimum of 3 minutes as a suggestion, but you could watch it for 15 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour. You're actually being flooded by an overwhelming number of these Duchenne smiles, which means you see the number of smiles that you would have seen as a caveman when you lived in villages when people actually cared about you. And you are so very, very right, Jackie. You know, 30 years ago, and I'm a little younger than you, but we had one of those telephones that you had to ring like this, you know, and no one could get you. There was no such thing as voicemail, like answering machines hadn't been invented. And so we weren't actually completely swamped by everybody else in the world trying to grab this minute amount of your attention, all of which adds up and compounds.
Yeah,
you're right.
Absolutely.
I've seen some stats that reading today's online newspapers and headlines just in, you know, the feed that's given you is more than most people consumed in an entire year, when we used to have an old-fashioned broadsheet newspaper delivered to the house, and we used to read the newspaper, and we only read one newspaper. We didn't read the newspaper from everywhere in the world like some of us do these days. I would read whatever is in the New York Times, as well as, you know, what's going on in London, as well as what's going in the Asia Pacific region, as well as what's going on in South Africa, South America. See, here's the crazy thing. That's all okay now. I actually have the ability to exist in that world without the anxiety, because it doesn't actually affect me. You're right. I've got this incredibly buoyant. It's like I'm swimming in the Dead Sea. I'm buoyant, no matter what's going on around me, right?
Yeah, we live in such a different world, and I finally understood that what was stopping most people from stepping into the world of building emotional resilience, what was stopping people from stepping into what is now called personal development, is that they didn't think they needed it. And why would they? From their perspective, life was just plodding along. They didn't notice how fast it was changing and how the tide had really started to turn. And if you want to know what's different in the world, you go to a happy hour. Because once upon a time, people got together at the end of a workday and they were happy and they were celebrating and they were talking about their families and they were talking about their hobbies and they were talking about all the things that come under the category of what's so good about my life. You walk into a happy hour now, people aren't sharing what they're happy about. It's a misnomer. And so it's just one more weight of constricting emotion, of negativity that we are being exposed to. And we didn't even realize it was happening. The language just changed. But all it took was one, because we all know misery loves company. Well, what I've discovered is that if misery loves company, positivity loves a crowd. So when you become more positive, you attract a crowd. It's not just like Three's Company. You attract a crowd. People will just feel compelled to come to you now. And it's because of this effervescent potential. Like there's this expectancy. The power of possible positive outcomes is incredibly compelling. And wouldn't you want that? I mean, for me, I've made it a requirement for all of my clients, especially those that are in my speaking group that I call the messenger community. They have to be priming their brains. They have to be raising their energy. Why? Because when you do that, you don't have to go hunting for stages. Stages come finding you. And doesn't everybody want to have another stage, some other place to speak on, which is why, of course, I said yes when you guys asked when I come on this program. Microphone, I'm there. But I wasn't always that way. I used to take a huge amount. It used to take a huge amount of emotional fortitude. I would get myself into a high state of agitation before I would take on the stage. I would let myself get upset. I'd let myself get angry. Anything that would raise my vibration enough that I could get over my limiting belief that I wasn't good enough to be the one at the front of the room or on the stage. I don't have to do that anymore. That's gone. And I didn't realize how gone it was until I attended the TEDx event in Vegas. And I walked into the room for rehearsals and people who've known me for years were coming up to me going, Jackie, what's changed? What's different? You seem calm. It's not how they knew me. I was calm the night before the stage. I was calm when I took the stage. I was calm when I got off the stage. It was like, that was fun. No big deal. And later I'm going, what the hell? Who took my brain and put this calm person in place of, I used to be known as Hurricane Jackie. I mean, I would come in like a whirlwind of energy. And now I'm pretty good most of the time. Now, don't tell my guy Mark that I said this because he will tell you the whole other side of Jackie. Yeah. You don't have to be perfect to be good. You don't have to be perfect to attract and pull power and share the power of positivity with other people. So I just want to give everybody a little heads up. It's going to start happening the first time you watch a positive prime session. It's going to happen every time you watch a positive prime session. And it's only going to take a few days and people around you are going to notice. And the ones who are wanting to know about it, you share it with. And the ones like my guy, Mark, who say, I don't get it, I'm good. And he goes back to reading his newspapers and getting into that emotional state that drives me a little crazy. And it still does. He goes in to watch and read his newspapers. I go in and turn on a positive prime session. Because otherwise his emotions used to impact me. Now they can slide right off of me as long as I remember, oh, crud, he's reading the news. Prime! Yeah, it had to become that automatic that I took care of myself. And giving myself permission to take care of myself at this level is also kind of new. It's a wonderful way to live in a place where self-care is normal. So thank you for creating this platform.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. Definitely. Like I said at the top, I can just listen to you guys yarn together because there's just so many great stories that are coming out. And I actually had a little bit of a light bulb moment. Thank you, Jackie, is when your partner goes to read the news and you watch Positive Prime, it could be potential for us to create a Positive Prime weekly or something, where we take the best stories from around the world and we put them into a session. So that way, when they're watching that news, we can watch this news and we're getting brought up to date with all the magic around the world. And I love that you talk about when you're positive, you bring in the crowd, because that's how we should operate. We should operate amongst groups of people who are looking out for each other. So when you do have those sad days, which we all have, or those mad days, then we've got people to support us, and we've got technologies to support us now as well. So thank you so much for sharing those. And I've got this like vision of a waterfall with a waterfall of optimism with a couple of elephants underneath it. Excuse me.
I'm going to point out something that when I was talking about the natural negative bias of the brain, and I'm a speaker, I help people become speakers. There's 4 emotional states that speakers are taught to touch, and and to try to balance and to move an audience through. And I just got it. The 4 states: sad, mad, glad, and scared. Of those 4 states, only one is positive. That gives us a clue as to what we pay attention to. When speakers are trained to be 3/4 negative and only 1/4 in the positive emotions. And that's just to give you a break. By the way, you watch a really highly trained speaker, they will touch a positive emotion about every 8 minutes, because that's as long as they can keep you in a negative state. Having learned that, I realized I never wanted to speak that way. I would rather tell you an engaging story and let you figure out how to pull yourself out of wherever you've been. I don't like to be the one who pokes and agitates somebody's pain. It's why, pardon me, I don't know if I can get away with this on your podcast, but I sucked at sales because I refused to prod and poke and agitate people's pain. I was still really close to my own emotional pain. I wasn't going to raise the pain of someone else. And they tried to should and shame me into the fact that I was not helping the people that I could help because I was unwilling to take them into their pain. And what I realize now is that that was their limiting belief talking. And the power of positivity means that I don't ever have to sell again. I never have to worry about somebody saying yes to me, because I've become energetically impossible to say no to. That's the power of priming my brain. And that's one of the side effects of positive prime is, what if all the things that you dislike about your business, you never had to do again because there was a positive way to get the same outcome that you thought you had to work hard at. So I don't have to work as hard. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not the decision maker. I still got to decide what to put on my website, which is under construction and has been for a decade. I can write a book faster than I can do my website. I'm just saying. But I'm not upset with myself about it anymore. I don't take myself to that dark, dank place where lives get lived and dreams go to die that I tagged Shouldville. It's just, I don't go there anymore. It is what it is. Reality is, when the time is right, it'll get built, and it'll be soon, because I think I found a session that's getting my brain working that direction. So I'll let you know. You'll know because it'll launch. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I knew you would have the answer for that. I was going to say, put some beautiful websites in your session, but you're already on it. I've got a question for you. You mentioned people positively priming. What would you say to someone who may not be positively priming just yet, and is hearing this for the first time potentially?
Ooh, boy, the first answer that almost jumped out of my mouth was, what are you waiting for? But the reality is that if self-care is not your norm, this is going to be outside your comfort zone. To do, and if you were brought up with the idea that changing a belief system had to be hard, that change was difficult, if you've got that BS running in the background, positive prime is going to seem like somebody's handing you a magic wand. And it's going to be so far outside of your comfort zone that you might struggle at first, especially if you start with being happier, because that gap actually caused an issue for one of my clients, because she was coming in from a world where she hadn't seen a smile and couldn't imagine herself being happy. She hadn't seen a smile in a really long time. So watching being happier was painful. She was like, it was just a struggle for her to, and I was like, okay, I get it now. It hadn't dawned on me that that would be too big of a gap for her to follow. So, I said, by all means, start with leaving Shouldville, but also go and look at some of the ones on forgiveness and some of the ones on surrender. Because when we're willing to forgive and surrender what we have held to be true as maybe only partially true, if we can get that little crack in the sidewalk, then you sprinkle positive prime on it on a regular basis, you're going to see a flower come up through the crack in the sidewalk. All you have to do is find a session that you are willing to watch and watch it consistently, and things will change. I didn't understand not one size fits all, but now I do. And that's why I'm so grateful that there are hundreds of sessions in my library, because no matter where one of my clients is, I can direct them to a session that's going to be a good place for them to start. And it only took 3 days before she called me up. Actually, she sent me a text and said, for the first time, when those images come up to help me identify where my emotional state is, for the first time today, Jackie, I clicked empowered. That's a radical change from where she started. And granted, I'm a pretty good brain retrainer, but I had not gotten results quite that fast prior to being able to guide someone through being nothing more than pushing a button and watching a positive prime session. It's a great adjunct to the work that I do with my clients.
It's a perfect point, Jackie, because positive prime doesn't replace you or the psychologist or the social worker or the healer or the therapist. What it does is it allows there to be a resource available 24/7 when you can't be with them physically, right? So it is perfect. And, we've got quite a few psychologists who've contributed program sessions, as we call them. And I was only saying to someone just very, very recently, there's this amazing session by Dr. Diane Shelton about transcending trauma. And she's an extraordinary human being and has an incredible story. And the content is really, really valuable. There's also another one by Elizabeth Bradley about grief. And there is a huge range of sessions, not just how do you make more money and how do you sell more and how do you, improve your team and so forth. There's all that content as well. But what I know is that all of us have life occurring, and all of us need different sessions at various times. And sometimes we just need a pattern interrupt. And so we need to be able to access completely different programs. There's this incredible session by Jack Canfield called The Success Principles, based upon a summary of the essence of his most important messages in that book. And I was like, if Jack was selling this from the stage, he'd sell that one particular piece, his program, for like a couple $100. We have hundreds of those opportunities. So we have tens of thousands of dollars worth of programs that people can access at such an affordable and accessible price. So I am actually really, really proud of what we're doing.
Oh, I'm
Thank-
delighted by it. I mean, Leaving Shouldville is part of the program that we created to stop suicide. And it's one piece of a $500 program. And it's included in Positive Prime. And I am so, so happy to be able to do that, to get my content out in a way that can reach more people and that more people have access to, because not everyone's going to want to come into my world and study and do the things that my students are required to do. But they all can use Positive Prime because it's simple and it's easy. And I like that, simple and easy.
Awesome. I think we could probably talk all day, couldn't we? We'll have to, I actually, like, I'm thinking about these conversations that we're having because so much changes so quickly. Like, we didn't realize that you're going to be a 2 times TEDx speaker. What's going to be the next chat that we get to have with Jackie, and what have been what's been happening further with your work with teenage suicide prevention, and how can we continue to support that? So I'd love to ask you, if anyone hears this, how can they support you? How can they jump online and find out more about you? And then, I think we'll just have to reschedule you for another chat.
Instead of them trying to find out about me, I'd love for them to find out about themselves. And
beautiful.
youcan'tdoitvwrong.com. youcan'tdoitvwrong.com will take them where they can access an assessment that helps them get to know, like, and trust themselves better. Otherwise, Jackie Simmons, JackieSimmons.com. I try to be fairly visible, but if they really want to get to know me, watch my TEDx talk at JackieTEDx.com and comment on it and share it. You never know whose life you might save.
Thank you. Yeah, it's such a powerful message, and like we've been talking about through this chat about the negativity that's coming in. Your message is so important, and telling that story is what I'm proud of, and Kim is as well, about the fact that we get to tell the stories of these amazing people who come into our lives through the Positive Prime platform. So thank you again, and thanks, Kim.
Thank you, Benny. You're always a beautiful human being to share time with, and so insightful. You hold incredible space. Thank you, Jackie, for sharing your heart and your brilliance with us all. And thank you, everybody, for listening. It's an honor, privilege, and pleasure to be with you. We really appreciate you. And of course, we'd love to ask you to share. And if you're not yet using Positive Prime, make sure you just start using Positive Prime today. We love you. Bye.